mighty ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continents swing. Yet in all your might and glory, vanished from the sky. Just another story. This man-made lie. They tell of how it fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is Ron Ewart, and Ron is the founder and runs National Association of Rural Landowners. This is an organization dedicated to reestablish, preserve, protect, and defend property rights. It's a powerful non-profit organization representing and defending the rights and interests of American urban and rural landowners. And starting the show off with a couple of quotes from Ron. Life is a fight to stay alive and a fight to keep others from taking your life or your liberty from you. Without knowledge and a broad point of reference, you cannot know the truth, much less be aware of reality. Welcome, Ron Ewart.
Thank you. Let me just make a slight correction. It is Ewart. But
Ewart. I'm sorry, Ewart. Okay.
It is a common event, not a problem.
Okay, I will get it right from now on, Ron.
Not a problem. Okay.
Ron Ewart.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate that. And you have what your address is, web address is www.narlo.org. When did you form this, and why? Now, I've had people on my show over the last 20 years. One of them, Richard Kelly Hoskins, says the foundation of all civilization is the self-sufficient family farm.
I'll buy that.
I would buy that too. So.
All right. The way we got started in our county, King County, which includes Seattle, Washington, was passing or trying to pass an environmental piece of legislation called the Critical Areas Ordinance, and several of us got involved in trying to oppose it because it was draconian. And in the process of trying to oppose it, we found that this kind of ordinance was going on all over the United States, in every county that has subscribed to Agenda 21, Smart Growth and Sustainable Development. And since rural landowners represent a minority, and the city folk have pretty much the majority vote, and they are the ones that elect the legislators that go to state capitals and the United States Capitol, we came to the conclusion that rural landowners were horribly underrepresented, if not totally disenfranchised in the first place. So in January 1, 2006, we established the National Association of Rural Landowners to act as an advocate for rural landowners throughout the country. Because of our articles and some of the products that we sell, we are fairly well known throughout the country.
What products do you sell?
Well, one, we have a very popular 18-inch by 24-inch aluminum no trespassing sign that specifically excludes government agents. Most of the signs just say no trespassing with some kind of language on it. We probably have one of the most powerful, legally intimidating no trespassing signs, and we've sold close to 3,000 of these signs, and they're hanging on properties in almost every state. We also have a flash drive that we put out that includes what we call the Narlo offense on how to fight government without having to hire a lawyer. It includes four videos, a PowerPoint presentation, and a whole bunch of resource material, background resource material. And one more, we have what we call the SOS kit, which includes what we call 20 documents to freedom. and the usual, of course, the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, but it has all kinds of other documents with regard to petitions against certain things. I'm trying to read them off the top of my head, and of course at 7 o'clock in the morning here, I'm probably not thinking that straight. Anyway, three major products that we sell in the interest of rural landowners.
Well, I believe I've seen your signs, and matter of fact, I'll talk to you after the show about putting those up on my site and giving my people access to it.
Appreciate it.
It's now, one of the problems, I've been talking to farmers here. I just put an event together for Sheriff Deaver here, and Sheriff Deaver's Cochise County. That's Tombstone, Benson, Arizona.
That's eastern, isn't it? Eastern Arizona?
Well, it's right beside Tucson.
Oh, it is? Okay, all right.
And the point was to bring veterans together. We've got a lot of homeless veterans out there. We've got 18 veterans committed suicide every day. And I talked with farmers and ranchers in Cochise County, well, all over the country, and they say their biggest problem is they can't get help. You know, I keep quoting the song, "How you gonna get them back on the farm after they've seen L.A.?" And so I came up with the idea of putting the farmers and ranchers together, so the ranchers and the farmers could teach the veterans, you know, how to grow our own food, and if we can generate our own energy and provide housing for veterans on ranches, we can. The goal being to reestablish the self-sufficient family farm, as opposed to plank number 9 of the Communist Manifesto, which is corporate farms. You know, can you say Archer Daniels Midland? Can you say Monsanto? Can you say genetically modified food that rats won't eat?
It's an issue that is literally taking over America, and that is where big business and big unions and big everything else are literally squashing out the little guy, who is the small family farm is just about gone into extinction. And the idea, I like your idea of trying to incorporate the returning veterans or the veterans that are already here into a project like that, where they could get a sense of self-worth and doing something, because most of them are feeling helpless. And any kind of a project that would help them to, you know, gain their self-respect would be well worthwhile. How you fund it, I guess what you're looking for is the farmer who would assist in bringing these guys in and setting them up.
What the farmer or the rancher needs to do, and what they're doing, folks. Let me try to they have, and they did this in Serbia, you know, in that area. They drove the farmers, the rural people, out of the farms and ranches. Now, they started this years ago with the Wildlands project. They wanted to make it illegal. They wanted to keep you out of the wildlands. They don't want you being self-sufficient. They don't want you being rural, so they drive you into the cities. The cities are where the police state exists, in my opinion. The cities have become the ghettos that you read about in history in Germany, where the Jews were sent. Now, you Americans are being herded into the ghettos of New York, of Philadelphia, of Houston, of L.A., and disarmed and put it, you know, I mean, come on, how many of you out there get this little rush of confidence and security when you see a cop car in your back window?
Hardly. I get stories all the time of policemen coming onto people's property. In LA County, they have established a SWAT team to enforce land use codes or land use violations. If you don't react fast enough to a land use code infraction, they send out 2 SWAT teams in SUVs with tinted windows, fully armed, bulletproof vests, AK-47s, the whole works, and they haul you off to court or haul you off to jail. And they're systematically going after landowners in Antelope Valley, which is in the eastern part of Los Angeles County. And we have similar situations right here in King County where the land use people have set up what they call code enforcement officers. There's 12 of them. And they because of the fact they think they have power, they push people around. And some people actually are fighting back. When the Critical Areas Ordinance here in King County was passed in 2004, all it did was force more and more people out of the law. I saw people logging their property in advance of the ordinance in order to harvest their timber before they couldn't harvest their timber. And they did it all without permit. So there is a concerted effort, Clay, by the city folk and by the environmental community to drive people off of rural lands into big cities where they can control them. And they can control them. All they have to do is shut off the power, the water, block the roads, or whatever they want, and you will capitulate.
Well, you know, I've been reporting on this type of thing. I mean, you know, what really got me launched into this fight, I'd already found out about the government drug dealer. I'd already drug dealing. I'd also found out that our president was the biggest drug dealer out there, George W. Bush. While he was CIA director, he advanced to that position. And I came up with a plan, and that was Liberty Villages. I mean, putting the rural communities back together, being small communities, low-cost housing. You don't really need a 2,000 square foot house, do you? If you've got, you know, all of the facilities that you need to exist and prepare your food, and if you can generate your own energy, then you don't really need the government or the bankers for nothing, do you?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, this country was found on independence and rural independence and self-sufficiency. But when the Industrial Revolution came along, a lot of people shifted from an agricultural pursuit into the industrial plants that existed in big cities. And it created a real serious problem, because when you go to a job in the big city and then the job disappears, you don't have a farm to sustain you. So what do? You put your hand out to government. And some of the greatest enclaves of dependence occur in big cities. And that's why we have such a big welfare state and a whole bunch of other things where the government resources are being dragged down by people who can't take care of themselves.
I have told my audience, and please let me know if you disagree with this opinion. Anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after 3 classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first, or the ranchers, the food producers, the people that produce the food, because they don't want you being able to feed yourself. Second, they go after the intelligentsia, anyone that's smart enough to know what they're doing. And third is the veterans and the law enforcement officers who might remain loyal to the old regime.
That's right.
And that would be. Right. I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
No, nor do I. Nikolai Ceausescu, when he became dictator of Romania back in the 70s or 80s, the first thing he did was to send his armies out and pick up all of the farmers and bring them into the big cities where he built apartments to put them in at gunpoint. And then he confiscated all of the land and forced the people who used to farm it out onto the farms at slave labor. And that's how he controlled them. And remember, a rural guy or gal is independent. And he doesn't like people pushing him around. And so he might just start a revolution or a civil war or some such thing. And the dictator has to squash that right away. And that's exactly what they're doing. There is a concerted effort in the United States through actually United Nations policies under Agenda 21 to force people off of the land and only have large, like you say, Monsanto and some of the other large agricultural entities doing the farming, where everybody else is inside the city in a 25-story apartment building where they either take their bike or they walk to work. And that is absolutely embedded in all land use policies right now. People have no idea what is going on to them in the undercurrents and behind the scenes in planning agencies throughout America. I just learned last night that there were 385 regional planning agencies in the United States, all planning to drive people out of the rural areas into the big cities where they can institute mass transit. And this is all based on an environmental agenda that man is a detriment to the planet and must be controlled.
Now, number 9 on the Communist Manifesto is corporate farms and regional planning. That's exactly where we are now. That's exactly what Archer Daniels Midland is. That's exactly what Monsanto is. Actually, Monsanto is worse because Monsanto is poisoning people at the same time. Also, number 4, confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. Number 5, central bank.
Yep.
I mean, it's right where we are right now. Now, what happened in Rhodesia? What is the same thing that happened in South Africa. It happened in what was it, Bosnia, Yugoslavia, whatever it was. They regionalized it. They divided it up. They had ethnics at war against each other. They did that in the Soviet Union. They starved 10 million people in the Ukraine alone, and that's like starving 10 million people in Kansas, for God's sakes.
If there were 10 million people in Kansas.
Yeah.
But can you imagine the city of New York, which has around 12 million people, all dying at one time? I mean, that's how drastic it is. And Stalin has blood on his hands from that episode, as well as do the people who allowed it to happen.
What you mean? You're not talking nasty about the Uncle Joe's best friend Roosevelt? I had somebody tell me yesterday, "Oh, you don't like Roosevelt? Well, you must be a Nazi." That's kind of what they do, isn't it? They just try to call you a name.
One of the most dangerous presidents that ever became president, in terms of he and Wilson, President Wilson, both were extremely dangerous presidents to America. Wilson didn't even believe in the Constitution and tried to undo it with the League of Nations.
That's right. And when the League of Nations fell, the reason the League of Nations, folks, didn't get in was that 2 countries refused to go along with it. The United States,
and one of them was America, right?
And it was Tsarist Russia. The Tsar wouldn't buy into the League of Nations. He saw it for what it was. And so what they did is they bribed Wilson and put the Federal Reserve in here that already killed a number of presidents, or tried to kill a number of presidents who fought the bankers. And in Russia, they simply murdered the Tsar and his family and his dogs, and gave us the Soviet Union.
That's right. And people don't think that America could morph into a socialist country. Well, it has already morphed into a socialist country. And it is up to people like myself and you and those that recognize what is going on in America and start the process of returning us to what we were and what we were designed to be. I have a new program coming out here within a week or so essentially starting in the rural areas, to purge the rural areas and the rural cities and counties of the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives, which is ICLEI, and it is a United Nations organization that has contracted with over 600 or 700 cities and counties throughout America to implement Agenda 21 and Smart Growth, which is, they were anti-American, anti-Constitution, and we're paying for it. The taxpayers are essentially through their representatives, are contracting with ICLEI to institute plans that essentially take away their freedoms. It's just crazy. So we're going to start a process here shortly in every county in America to start removing ICLEI from the cities and counties within their state.
All right, let me ask you about something else here. There is a executive order that has just been put out by Obama, and it's
the Rural Initiative.
The Rural Initiative. Yeah, they want to set up another committee to divide up your property and make it into a controlled environment. And they say, but he says, let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, I don't have the actual language in front of me.
It says that the rural areas are incredibly productive and valuable. It's let me pull it up. The exact wording is so great, because I really agree with what Obama said, but what he's trying to do is put these government committees in there, more politburos, more czars, and take the property away from the people.
Well, they're not going to take it away from it. You'll be able to live on it. But what they will do is take the right of use away from it. And if you do not have the right of use of your property, essentially you don't own your property.
You know,
the right of use is one of the 4 pillars of property ownership, and it is the most important. But through environmental regulation and ordinances, they have systematically removed your ability to do anything on your property. You can't even have a car on your property that is inoperable, or they come by and they fine you, and if you don't remove it, the fines mount up to maybe even thousands of dollars.
The executive order here is 13575. The establishment of the White House Rural Council. Section 1, policy. 16% of the American population lives in rural counties. Strong, sustainable rural communities are essential to winning the future and ensuring American competitiveness in the years ahead. These communities supply our food, fiber, energy, safeguard our natural resources, and are essential in the development of science and innovation. Through the rural communities face numerous challenges, they also present enormous economic potential. And that's why he wants the federal government involved in your land.
Look, Clay, if the government owns or controls the money, the electricity, the energy, essentially, they control the food, and they control the water, and they control your health care, you haven't got anything left. They control all of you and your person, because you can't live without food and water. And energy has become a pillar of a basic component of modern life. Without energy, we're driven back to the outhouse days in the 1800s. And they control the money through the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor a reserve. The Federal Reserve is owned by private individuals, and they, through this energy policy that is absolutely insane, such as giving $535 million to Cylinder, which was essentially going broke in the first place, and trying to take 6.6% of the energy production in America and bring it up to 100%, and that's solar and wind, which represents about 0.6% of the total energy supply. Without oil, without crude oil, without natural gas, without coal, this country is powerless, literally.
Now, I've said that Obama's idea of greening America is selling the top of that mountain to a foreign corporation that's going to bring windmills in from China. And by the way, we've got like graveyards of these windmills from China around the United States.
That's right.
And then they're going to take the power that they generate from that and pipe it down the hill to your power company, sell it to them, and then they're going to sell it to you. And they're probably going to raise the prices because it costs a little bit more to do that than it does to mine the coal.
But they have to subsidize solar and wind with millions, if not billions of dollars to make it even close to viable. They then have to buy up corridors to distribute the power, the electricity coming from those two sources. So that eats up more private land. And anybody who has the idea that 6/10 of the total power production in America can be risen to the point where it will replace natural gas or crude oil or nuclear is insane. And yet that is where they are putting, being the government, is putting emphasis upon, including this ridiculous corn to ethanol thing that has done nothing but raise the price of corn, and so thereby our food. The people who are running this country are running it with an agenda, and the agenda is coming out of the United Nations and the ruling class who essentially control the money. And unless we start fighting back, we can't fight them. We can't go into Washington, D.C. You saw what happened when we had the 1 million people of the Tea Party group in Washington, D.C. Nothing changed. We can't fight them unless we start fighting at the local level and start taking over city after county after city, and then finally moving on to the state, getting control of the state with the right kind of changing back to essentially a constitutional form of government, which was what we were supposed to be in the first place. We cannot attack Washington, D.C. as it is constituted right now, because it is all powerful. We have to start from the local level to do it, including our schools, where they're brainwashing our kids.
Well, we have, one of my friends started Timothy Bible College, and he also started a Little Red Hood Schoolhouse. Under my concept for Liberty Villages, you're basically restoring the old plantation idea, but as a cooperative. So everybody's working together, everybody's dependent, and that's basically a form of local government called a ton that's been around for thousands of years.
Sure. And it works well. People in small communities, they control themselves. There's not some big brother that is slapping new regulations on them without putting any money out to support the new regulations. That goes on all the time. Washington, D.C. mandates a regulation and then won't give the money to the states, or the counties, or the cities to implement the legislation. And sometimes they do, but when they do, they put strings on it. And the whole idea of, as I said earlier in the broadcast, that the whole idea of America was independence, self-reliance, and responsibility.